When sharing the road with a truck, it is important to remember that trucks generally a. require longer distances to stop than smaller vehicles do. B. require less time to pass on a downgrade than smaller vehicles do. C. require a smaller turning radius than smaller vehicles do. D. require less time to pass on an incline than smaller vehicles do. A. require longer distances to stop than smaller vehicles do. Because of their size, trucks need longer distances to stop than smaller vehicles do. A driver can legally pass on the right side of another vehicle? A. if the vehicle is waiting to turn left and there is an available passing lane. B. even if it means driving off the pavement. C. on a narrow bridge. D. at any time. When you drive through an area where children are playing, you should expect them a. to know when it is safe to cross the street. B. to stop at the curb before crossing the street. C. to run out in front of you without looking. D. not to cross the street unless they are with an adult. When encountering a funeral procession, a driver a. may not drive between the vehicles forming the procession unless authorized to do so by a police officer. B. may not enter an intersection and cross the path of a funeral procession as it is proceeding through a solid red traffic light. C. must yield the right of way to any motor vehicle that is part of the funeral procession. D. all of the above. D. all of the above. State law requires pedestrians and drivers to yield the right of way to any motor vehicle that is part of a funeral procession. The driver of a vehicle not part of a procession may not enter an intersection while a funeral procession is proceeding through the intersection, unless that driver can do so without crossing the path of the procession.
Want to ace your DMV test? Click on the link below and get your guaranteed cheat sheet.
This sign means a. a left curve is ahead. B. a series of curves is ahead. C. an S curve is ahead. D. the road will be slippery when wet. D. the road will be slippery when wet. This sign warns that especially slippery conditions exist when the road is wet. Which of the following about winter driving is not true? A. winter is the most difficult driving season. B. checking your vehicle's antifreeze and windshield washer fluid levels is especially important during the winter. C. using cruise control in winter weather is a safe thing to do. D. it is best to use snow tires on your vehicle. C. using cruise control in winter weather is a safe thing to do. You should not use cruise control on snow, in rain, in fog, or under similar hazardous conditions. Winter is the most difficult driving season and requires extra caution from drivers. It is important to consistently check your antifreeze and windshield washer fluid levels. Using snow tires can increase a vehicle's traction on the surface of slippery roads. When signing the consent form for their teenage child's learner license, parents, guardians are indicating that a. their child has passed a driver education course. B. their child is a careful driver. C. their child's listed date of birth is correct. D. they accept financial responsibility for any damage that is a result of the minor operating a motor vehicle. D. they accept financial responsibility for any damage that is a result of the minor operating a motor vehicle. When applying for a learner license, a teenage driver under the age of 18 must have a consent form signed by a parent, guardian. Signing this form obligates the parent, guardian to accept financial responsibility for any damage that is a result of the minor operating a motor vehicle. When turning left, drivers must yield the right of way to A. Other drivers who are already in the intersection. B. Oncoming traffic. C. Pedestrians who are already in the intersection. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. When turning left, drivers must yield the right of way to oncoming traffic. Drivers must also always yield the right of way to pedestrians, bicyclists, and other drivers who are already in the intersection. This sign means A. Winding road. B. No parking. C. Right lane closed. D. Multiple turns. A. Winding road. Warning signs prepare drivers for upcoming road conditions and hazards and are usually yellow with black markings. This sign warns drivers that they are approaching a winding road and that they should adjust their speed accordingly. Traffic signals sometimes display arrows to control turns from specific lanes. A solid red arrow, A, is never used as a traffic signal. B, has the same meaning as a circular red traffic light. C, means that drivers may turn in the direction indicated by the arrow. D, means that the traffic the arrow is pointing toward must stop. B, has the same meaning as a circular red traffic light. A solid red arrow in a traffic signal means the same thing as a circular red traffic light. When an arrow is red, traffic in the indicated lane must stop and may not turn in the direction that the arrow is pointing. This sign means A. One-way traffic. B. Divided highway ends. C. Two-way traffic. D. Keep left. B. Divided highway ends. Warning signs are usually diamond-shaped with black markings on a yellow background. They alert drivers to upcoming hazards. This sign indicates that the divided highway is about to end. This road sign means A. Increase your speed. B. Railroad crossing ahead. C. Intersection ahead. D. Four-way stop ahead. C. Intersection ahead. This sign means that you are approaching an upcoming intersection. Watch carefully for cross traffic. You may drive around the gates at a railroad crossing. A. When the train has passed. B. Under no circumstances. C. When the lights have stopped flashing. D. When other drivers drive around the gates. B. Under no circumstances. You are required to stop at all railroad crossings when signals warn of an approaching train. These signals may include flashing red lights, a lowered crossing gate, a flagger signaling, or a train's audible signal of warning. Do not attempt to go around a lowered gate. When approaching a railroad crossing warning sign. A. Be ready to drive faster than the train. B. Be prepared to stop if a train is nearby. C. Look for a way around any lowered gates. D. Assume no trains are nearby and continue driving normally. B. Be prepared to stop if a train is nearby. Railroad crossing warning signs are used to warn drivers of the possibility of a train. Drivers should obey all railroad crossing warning signs and never go around barriers or disregard the warning sign. A person walking with a white cane or guide dog is likely to be A. A deaf person. B. A person involved with a traffic study. C. A blind person. D. None of the above. C. A blind person. Drivers must always yield the right-of-way to a pedestrian when the pedestrian is a blind person who is using a white cane or guide dog. You want to turn left at an intersection. The light is green but oncoming traffic is heavy. You should A. Use the next intersection. B. Wait at the crosswalk for traffic to clear. C. Wait in the center of the intersection for traffic to clear. D. Take the right-of-way since you have a green light. C. Wait in the center of the intersection for traffic to clear. When making a left turn where there is approaching traffic, you must wait for the approaching traffic to go through before you turn. You may enter the intersection to prepare for your left turn if the light is green and no other vehicle ahead of you plans to make a left turn. Which of the following statements about railroad crossings is true? A. It is against the law to go around lowered gates at a crossing. B. You must stop at a railroad crossing when directed to do so by a flagger. C. Not all railroad crossings are equipped with flashing red signals and gates. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. You must stop at a railroad crossing when directed to do so by a flagger, stop sign, or warning devices, such as gates or flashing lights. Not all railroad crossings are equipped with such devices. It is against the law to drive around lowered railroad crossing gates. A good defensive driver. A. Drives slowly at all times. B. Looks out for the actions of other drivers. C. Travels at a constant speed. D. Only drives in familiar areas. B. Looks out for the actions of other drivers. Even the most experienced drivers can be distracted while driving. A defensive driver looks out for the actions of other drivers and anticipates potential problems. When a vehicle with an anti-lock braking system starts to lose traction on a slippery road, drivers should A. Pump the brakes. B. Press and hold the brake pedal. C. Press and hold the gas pedal. D. Lightly tap the brakes. B. Press and hold the brake pedal. If their vehicle loses traction on a slippery road, a driver with an anti-lock braking system (ABS) needs to press down hard on the brake pedal, hold it, and steer out of danger. In an emergency situation, the ABS automatically pumps the brakes at a faster rate than the driver could. Removing steady pressure from the brake pedal or pumping the brakes will disengage the ABS. Coming to a complete stop at an intersection, yielding to cross traffic, pedestrians, and then proceeding through the intersection when the way is clear corresponds with A. A solid red light. B. A flashing yellow light. C. A solid green light. D. A flashing red light. D. A flashing red light. A flashing red traffic light means the same thing as a stop sign. You must come to a complete stop, yield to cross traffic and pedestrians, and then proceed when the way is clear. The best way to avoid hydroplaning is to A. Keep your tires properly maintained. B. Slow down when roads are wet or slushy. C. Watch out for standing water or puddles. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. When roads are wet, Cars take a longer distance to stop and may skid on quick turns. Do not use cruise control when driving under wet or icy conditions. Reduce your speed and drive with caution. This sign means A. A divided highway ends. B. A one-way street begins. C. A one-way street ends. D. A divided highway begins. D. A divided highway begins. This sign indicates that the road ahead becomes a divided highway. Keep to the right of the divider or median. What kinds of drugs can affect your driving ability? A. Allergy medicine. B. Marijuana. C. Cold remedies. D. All of these choices. D. All of these choices. Many kinds of drugs can impair your ability to drive. This includes illegal drugs and legal prescription or over-the-counter medications. It can be a criminal offense to drive while impaired by any drug. To avoid collisions with vehicles in your blind spots, you should A. Quickly turn your head to see if your blind spot is clear before changing lanes. B. Adjust your rearview mirrors every few minutes. C. Honk your horn right before turning or changing lanes. D. None of the above. A. Quickly turn your head to see if your blind spot is clear before changing lanes. Before turning or changing lanes, turn your head and glance over your shoulder in the direction of your move to see if your blind spot is clear. Never rely on your mirrors alone. If another car is in danger of hitting you, you should A. Sound your horn. B. Wave your arms. C. Use your emergency lights. D. Flash your headlights. A. Sound your horn. Your horn should be used to warn other drivers or pedestrians in situations where they may not see you. For example, if you think another driver is about to hit you, you should sound your horn. You are waiting to turn left at a multi-lane intersection and opposing traffic is blocking your view. You should A. Accelerate rapidly when the first lane you need to cross is clear. B. Wait until you can see all the lanes you need to cross before going ahead with your turn. C. Wait for an oncoming driver to wave you across the intersection. D. Edge your car into each lane of opposing traffic as soon as it clears. B. Wait until you can see all the lanes you need to cross before going ahead with your turn. You should never start a left turn until you can see that all the lanes you need to cross are clear and that you can safely make the turn. This road sign means A. The road ahead turns sharply right, then left. B. The road ahead turns sharply left, then right. C. The road ahead curves to the left. D. Construction ahead. A. The road ahead turns sharply right, then left. This sign indicates that the road ahead will turn sharply to the right and then to the left. Passing is prohibited. A. On hills and curves. B. At intersections. C. At railroad crossings. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. Locations where it is unlawful and unsafe to pass another vehicle include hills, curves, intersections, and railroad crossings. While driving, you come upon a sign displaying the words "Reduced speed, 35 miles per hour." This means A. That the new 35 miles per hour speed limit begins at this sign. B. That the new 35 miles per hour speed limit begins at the next speed limit sign. C. That you have plenty of time to slow down before the reduced speed zone. D. That you should reduce your speed to 35 miles per hour, but only under poor weather conditions. A. That the new 35 miles per hour speed limit begins at this sign. Reduced speed signs inform drivers that they must reduce their speeds. If a new speed limit is posted on one of these signs, the new speed limit begins at the sign. A seat belt should be adjusted so that it A. Is loose. B. Is buckled snugly across your hip bones and lower abdomen. C. Is hidden beneath the seat. D. Keeps the seat belt buzzer or light from operating. When faced with an oncoming car to the left and a bicyclist to the right, you should A. Pull onto the shoulder. B. Split the difference. C. Let the car pass and then pass the bike. D. Pass the bike quickly. C. Let the car pass and then pass the bike. When there is more than one potential hazard on the road, you should ensure that you only have to deal with one of them at a time. For example, when there is a bicyclist on the right that you want to pass and an oncoming car to the left, you should not try to squeeze between both at the same time. Instead, let the oncoming car pass, and then pass the bicyclist. If you are driving on the interstate and pass your exit, you should A. Quickly cut across traffic to make your turn. B. Make a U-turn to go back to the exit. C. Continue driving and use the next exit. D. Put your vehicle in reverse to go back to the exit. C. Continue driving and use the next exit. Don't make a last-minute turn into an exit. If you pass your exit, you must go to the next one. Railroad crossings should always be considered A. Safe to cross, as it is unlikely that a train will be coming. B. Dangerous. C. Safe locations to park a car. D. A place where it is required to stop. B. Dangerous. Railroad crossings are always dangerous. Drivers should always look and listen for trains approaching from either direction on all railroad tracks. Always follow the directions indicated by signs, signals, and flaggers. Never proceed past a railroad crossing until you are certain it is safe to do so.